Hey guys, so I have some time this weekend. I'm going to do some general maintenance on the Honda, the Acura, the basically the work car. So going through some of the things that I checked, I showed you the brake fluid last week and the clutch fluid and how we flushed the clutch and why it needed to be done. And I'll show you some of the other fluids that I need to check just to make sure that I'm doing, starting off fresh with good general maintenance practices, and that way I can know from there what I need to do moving forward. So the first thing that I check is the oil, and when I check it, I'm going to look at whether there's enough in there, which you can see that there is based on those dots. And you can also see that the oil itself is a nice kind of honey color. So that oil you can tell has been replaced recently. So I don't have to worry about that oil. The other thing I want to look at is, again, fluids. So put that guy back in and check the radiator fluid. So I pulled the cap and it's blue, and as you can tell, see how it's not cloudy. It's a nice blue color. It hasn't really turned any colors or gotten cloudy, so we know that I don't have to flush that now. So I can let that go. I'll probably let that go for a season, and maybe next summer or in the fall I'll flush that out. So looking at a little bit more, we can see that this belt, you can see that there's some wear on the outside, but we can tell that it's still a good belt because you can look at the grooves here where it's flexed across the pulley, and there aren't any cracks on that belt. So that belt is still good. But I'm probably going to replace it anyway because the tensioner arm pulley, the one right here, and the idler pulley, they sound a little funny. So I should make a separate video and show you why those sound funny and why I'm going to replace them. They're cheap parts, and while I have the belt off, I'm just going to put a new belt on, and I'll probably keep the old one just because it's still in good shape. But the one thing that I am going to change today, or there's a couple, is the PCV valve, which is this little guy right here. The PCV valve is a positive crankcase ventilation, and what that does is it's a check valve that allows the pressure, essentially the blow-by gases from the cylinder, to not create too much pressure in the intake manifold, and keeps oil from circulating back into the cylinder as the check valve. What it does is it, based on the airflow, creates a vacuum, pulls that gas through, and allows for it to vent appropriately. The other thing I'm going to do is change the air filter, another cheap thing. I have checked the filter that's in there, and it's in pretty good shape, but again, it was under 20 bucks for a filter, so I'm just going to swap that out and again have a fresh start. The other thing, and this is what the primary video is going to be, is the spark plugs. They're under here, so we're going to get into how to do those. And while I'm at it, I'll show you, here's the new tensioner arm that's going to be replaced. The idler pulley, I'm still waiting on a new belt. Here's the air filter. The other thing that I'm going to do is drain the transmission, and I might make a video, I might not, but it's one of those things that it's pretty much just like the oil change on the Chevelle. You drain it and then refill it. The nuance is you got to make sure that you use these aluminum crush washers on any of the openings. So this is the PCV valve. It has its own aluminum crush washer, and the drain and fill plugs on the transmission have similar ones. So that's something you got to replace every time. And of course, these are the new spark plugs. So today I'm going to do this guy, the filter. Filter's real easy, and then the spark plugs. Filter is easy on these cars. Essentially, you got these clips, you pop them all off. Got one back here. And then this lifts up and out. You can get that filter right out and swap the new one in. The PCV valve is a little bit trickier because you need to pull this hose, and you can see that it has this little butterfly clamp, so we squeeze that, pull that off, pull the hose, unscrew that guy, and I'll show you how that looks after I pull it out. But it's a pretty easy job. You do like I said, the butterfly valve. The hose can get stuck sometimes, and the trick is to try to not pull straight with those, but to try to rotate it and break it free. The tension on there, it getting hot and sticking to that, it breaks free easier out of rotation. The shear is a little bit better, and there's not as much surface area when you go try to do it in a rotation as opposed to just a straight pull. But I'll show you that one. And then, of course, the spark plugs. So real quick, this is the new filter. This is the old filter. The old filter is not in bad shape. You can see that the pleats are fairly clean. I could keep running this, but again, it's about doing things right and getting it to zero, and then knowing maintenance, intervals from there. So this will pop right back in, and I put those clips on, and that's a real easy job. All in all these parts only cost about $200, so it's nice to, spend the money, spend the time, do this, and then know that, all of the maintenance things are at the interval that you're tracking. And it's important to, do these things right so that you get the most out of the vehicle. A lot of people ignore a lot of these things, and, that's where problems start to occur. So real easy, these clips, you can see that it was down and under on the bottom, but you just squeeze with a pair of pliers and it opens up. And when I put this back on, I'll put this on top so that I can get to it much easier in the future. It wasn't wrong to be underneath, it just makes things more difficult. And then, like I was saying, try to rotate it and it'll come right off. And I'll pull that out and show you guys. All right, so this is real easy. We just put the wrench on here and we break it free. I'm gonna need two hands on this because I don't want to break something. But I'll unbreak that and I'll show you the old versus new. All right, so got them off. This is the old one and the new one. We can see how, if we look right here, see how the plunger is essentially stopped at the top, and if we shake it, you don't really hear it moving. So this PCV valve was a good call to replace because we can see that it's not doing its job. If that plunger is not open, like on the new one, here, see how it's open with just from gravity, and we can hear it, allowing it to move back and forth and do its job. So that wasn't letting the crank case pressure be vented appropriately. And you can see that's just going to get gummed up from oil. So it's a cheap part, easy to replace, and nothing big, but does make a difference as far as fuel economy and longevity of the motor. A lot of people ignore these, but I think this part was like $15, so definitely worth replacing. So here's one thing that I noticed this is the new crush washer that came with the new PCV valve, and this is the old one here. And you can see the difference in thickness. I like the thicker washers because their job is to collapse. They are the same diameter, as you can see, but I like the thicker washer. Luckily, I have a set, and they're the same size washers as what's used to change the oil. So I already have some in the garage here. So I'm going to use, instead of the one that came with the PCV valve, one that I had that is the same thickness, just because I like, I don't know, that one feels cheap, so I'm just not going to use it. All right, so the new one's in, nothing major. There's probably a torque value on this, but with the crush washer, what I do is I essentially put the wrench on there and tighten it, and it'll get to a point where it feels tight, and then I'll twist it a little bit more, and it'll be a little slip where the washer kind of crushes, and I feel that happen. I want to be careful though, because this is all aluminum. I don't want to go crazy. But also when I pulled it off, I had a general idea of how much torque it took to get it off. So that's kind of how I do it. An old timer used to call it German tight, or German torque, which just means good and tight. And so I'll put that hose back on and the PCV valve will be done. And I'm going to make a separate video for the spark plugs because we're already at 10 minutes on this one. But that's the PCV valve. I already got the air filter in, super easy. Like we checked the other fluids. So now it's really just, we'll deal with the belt another time because the other pulley's still got to come in the mail. And we'll do the spark plugs here shortly. Anyway, I miss you guys. Love you.